Hey, it's Dr. Brenda, financial coach, sociologist, founder of the Gutsy Women Club, and full-time RVer traveling the country with my 3 cats. Hey, please subscribe below if you already subscribed. Really appreciate it. Okay, so today is a very difficult day for me. I'm going to talk to you about my efforts to save Ginger the cat. And this is intended as part 1. I'm going to add to this as I know what the situation is. So this is the short of it. I traveled with 3 cats. Dolly is the eldest at about 13, and then the 2 sisters, Coco and Ginger, who are approaching 4, about 3.5 years old. And last March, I noticed Ginger having some sort of peculiar behaviors, and she would sit by the sink and want water out of the sink. She never did that before, and she just seemed off. Couldn't quite figure out what the situation was. I spent one weekend, I was just Googling, what could excessive thirst be due to, and one of the things that came up was anemia. And the trick to that is to look at the cat's gums and see if what color they are. And her gums were white, her gums were gray. They're supposed to be a nice shade of pink. And so I called and got her in to see a local vet. I was in Texas at the time. And that vet ran some tests and diagnosed her with autoimmune hemolytic anemia. And so ran some of the possible causes, such as leukemia, ran those tests. That was negative. Later, I've had an anemia panel. All those things were negative. So the anemia, her inability to produce red blood cells, has been a problem ever since. And we've had her on prednisolone, which is a cat version of prednisone. So I'm going to read to you. I've been taking her in regularly, primarily to get her blood work checked, as we've monkeyed with the prednisolone level, from 10 milligrams to 7.5 to 5, 2.5, 1.25, and then we experimented. We mean me and the vets, but I experimented with weaning her off. So since March, here are the places where she has had blood work, had a vet exam: Harker Heights, Texas; Abilene, Texas; Flagstaff, Arizona; San Diego, California; Morro Bay, California; Oakland, California; Brookings, Oregon; Astoria, Oregon; Heber City, Utah; Hurricane, Utah; Williams, Virginia; Flagstaff, Arizona; Alpine, Texas, and now we're adding San Antonio, Texas to that list. And that's just what I had in my calendar. I might have missed a few there. In fact, I'm sure I did. But that is the itinerary of her blood work. And so having a cat now who has some type of a chronic issue, this came to a head on Friday. I had tried to wean her off and then took her in for blood work, and the blood counts were way off. And so I had a vet in Flagstaff examine her, look at her, and we decided to get her back on prednisolone, like at 5 milligrams, and then try 2.5 and go with blood work again. So I took her in Friday to the local vet in Alpine, Texas, close to Big Bend National Park. Took her in there on Friday, and they did in-house labs. Now, most of her labs are through what's called a company called IDEX, and so they've been sent to that lab. A couple of places have done in-house. This was in-house, and sometimes they are not as reliable, but the results came in, and they looked terrible. She shouldn't really be even alive with those types of blood results. And the vet took a little bit of a novel approach. I had also mentioned to her that she'd been limping off and on. And he said, well, why don't we take some x-rays? Now, all of those vets that I have just those places where I have visited, none of them took an x-ray. This guy said, let's just try an x-ray. So he took two views of the x-ray, and they show something. He thinks it's the spleen that's really enlarged and pushing on her, moving her intestines all to one side, in fact. And so there's some type of mass there. And so I'm like, oh my God, you know, what is happening here? This is not a good situation. And so we discussed the options, and he was willing to come out the next morning and put her down if she were to crash. I was sick. I was just so distraught, and I'm like, look, you know, what are my options? What can I do? And he said, you've got to get her to an emergency vet. You've got to get her to a big city place. She probably needs a splenectomy, removal of the spleen. And so we looked at the options: El Paso, Austin, San Antonio. El Paso is the opposite direction of which I'm moving. Austin is great, but it's a little bit further north. And I'm like, San Antonio, I plan to be there already in early December. I'm just going to get out of this RV park, find a place in San Antonio for a week, get her to the emergency vet. That, he told me, depending on what happens there, that should touch off the internal medicine specialist seeing her. So I learned, certainly he gave me a referral. Without his name, without a referral, I don't think Ginger would be seen. So that was critical. This particular hospital does not see pets. You know, the internal specialists are not going to see them unless they've been referred to another vet. Second thing that sort of saved my butt is every time I took her in and I got the blood results, I had it emailed to me. I put that all on a Google Drive called Ginger's Blood Work. I added the x-rays to it, added everything I could to that drive. So when I got here in San Antonio, I was able to just give them a link. They had all the files ready. So yesterday was exhausting. I'm still beat. I got up early and drove about 6 hours, the last half hour, through San Antonio traffic. Now, I've been in San Antonio before, but this is my first time really maneuvering a big rig around, and it was not fun. They've got all these freeways that are going this way and that. Anyway, found the RV park, which is further north than I had hoped, but you know, I just needed a place. I didn't do the research as to where the clinic was, where the hospital was, where I needed to go. So I got in about 2:30. Yesterday is when I actually got the RV set up, collected Ginger, put her in her crate, and then I had about a half an hour drive to the pet hospital. The vet had told me, and the vet in Alpine had told me, that she really needs a blood transfusion right away. So I went in with that information, and they took her back right away. But the vets, they were slammed. Shortly after I got there, they stopped seeing patients unless it was life or death critical. They started to advise people to take them to another clinic because the wait was 6 to 8 hours. So I checked her in at about 3 o'clock, explained what happened, and waited. They came out a couple of hours later and told me that her platelet count was not as drastic as what the vet on Friday had told me. So she did not need a transfusion, but it was going to be a long, long wait. And I'd grabbed the cat, grabbed my wallet, grabbed my keys, and I had run out of there. And so unfortunately it got really, really cold in the clinic, and I just want to mention this because I was freezing. I hate the cold anyway. The air conditioning was jammed up. I asked at the front desk if they by chance had a blanket in the back, something I could wrap with. She said no. Said, but if you want to go out, there's like a grocery store. They have some sweatshirts. You can buy a sweatshirt there. So I started to head out because I was freezing, and another woman who was waiting for her dog said, don't do that, don't go. I've got extra blankets in my car, I'm going to get you one. So kindness of her heart, I was able to stay warm that night, and she told me to keep the blanket, pass it on, which I will. But thank you. If you're out there, wherever you are, I really appreciate your kindness. It's those small acts of kindness that we really keep us going. We tend to lose, lose that kindness in such a harsh world. So anyway, the good news is she didn't need a transfusion. Now, I spoke to the vet later on, and I got to tell you, I mean, she was exhausted. And you have exhausted doctors, people doctors, pet doctors, any kind of doctors. You might have to nudge them a little. So I felt like she didn't really have a game plan, didn't see how serious this was. And so I said, look, did you see the x-rays? She said, well, I looked at them, but let me go back. I'll look again. Because she had advised me to just bring her back Monday morning, get her in line for an ultrasound. So she looked at the x-rays, which again clearly show this big mass, her intestines being pushed to one side of her body. And she said, yeah, she needs to be seen by an internal medicine specialist. Bring her back tonight. So I'm going to take her back tonight after 8 p.m. when they do the evening shift. And she will spend the night at the hospital, and in the morning have a internal medicine specialist look at her and have the ultrasound. So I am waiting for that. I mean, meanwhile, she has gone out for a walk. She's eating normally. Cats are tricky. Cats are really tricky. They act normal, and underneath they're like on their last breath. So anyway, once I know more about the results from the ultrasound and the recommendations from the internal medicine specialist, I will come back and get you the part 2 of this video. So it's exhausting. I'm tired. My cats mean everything to me. They're my traveling buddies. They're my companions. They're my family. So I'm going to do what I can for them. So I've got some tips here that I've been thinking about as I have experienced getting medical care. So I'm gonna offer them to you. The first thing is that there seems to be a vet shortage, a vet technician shortage, a vet staff shortage nationwide. This was most noticeable traveling through California and Oregon especially. And so if you want to be seen by a vet, if you know where you're going, and you call ahead, call ahead a week, 2 weeks, even more at some places to get an appointment, because a lot of places are not seeing new clients at all, new pets, and explain that you're an RVer and you're in need of, your cat, your dog is in need of some assistance, but call in advance. If you're expecting to get in within a day or two, odds are you're not going to see a vet. And so just be aware of that situation. Another tip, have a primary vet, a vet who is able and wanting to review all of the records and can give you some advice. I got really lucky in San Diego. Someone had canceled an appointment at the holistic vet clinic, and I gobbled it up. So I was able to take her in to see the holistic vet. Started her, in addition to prednisolone, on some Chinese herbals called Gui-Pi-Tang, Gui-Pi-Tang. But the vet that Ginger saw has been following and advising everything that I have done since then. She's recommended different dosages. She's reviewed the blood results. She is one of a kind. She is a gem. And so that has been incredibly valuable. The cats really don't have a hometown vet since I have been traveling. That's going to change this winter when I'm going to make sure that they all see the local vet in South Padre Island, and who's hopefully can advise if things happen on the road. But yeah, get yourself a primary vet, or a vet who is willing to follow this up. Also kudos to the vet that I saw in Flagstaff, Arizona, who really wanted me to check in and you know, even looked at the x-rays and confirmed what the vet in Alpine said. So there are some really great vets out there who are willing to work with you. I really hope that you can find someone like that. And third thing, there's no correlation between how much you're paying and the quality of services. I've paid maybe $90 to just have a CBC done, have it drawn, no exam, no analysis at a vet where they weren't taking anybody, but they agreed to do the CBC, and I sent those results on to the vet in San Diego for consultation. So that was at the low end. At the high end, vet who ripped me off was in Astoria, Oregon. Not just triple, I would say quadruple the prices of what I had been paying earlier. Came out with sort of a menu of blood work choices, and everything was very expensive. This was also early in the season. This was also where I could not go in with Ginger, so they were doing curbside drop-offs, and a lot of times I felt like I couldn't sit and watch and monitor and explain what was going on. Now, most people came out and they took a history, but sometimes it was just an assistant who didn't seem to be clued in on the terms that I was using, autoimmune, hemolytic, anemia, prednisolone. Now, that if I've learned those terms, certainly someone working in a vet's office should know those terms, but I felt that wasn't always the case. I have felt better seeing a vet these last few months where I am able to go in with a mask and at least talk to the vet in person and explain the history. Yeah, there is, you know, try to find out. There's only one vet office that told me in advance, this was Williams, Arizona, okay, it's going to cost this much, and thank you for doing that. But most of the vet's offices were not upfront in terms of what I would be paying, and I had a pretty good range there by the end that I'd be paying $100 to $250 for blood work and an exam. The Astoria, Oregon vet just threw that, you know, way out, but otherwise it's been within reason. Okay, I can't stress this enough. Keep your records in a Google Drive or some online on the cloud drive that you can just keep it all organized in a folder, open it up so that you can share it, people can view it, and share that link with the medical profession. So that opened up a lot of doors for me. The fact that they had those x-rays here in San Antonio were like, oh, okay, we can see something is going on. This is serious. We're not going to turn this person away. You've got the complete history, so yeah, store them in a Google Drive. That has, I didn't start doing that till probably this summer when I realized that I'm sending individual files. It would be so much easier to just collect them, organize them, and just send one link. So that has worked out really well. All right, so another word of advice. If you got to change your route, change your route. I'm supposed to be in Big Bend National Park at a campground right outside here. And I can't get vet services there. In fact, the closest vet was over 60 miles away. I'm not going to jeopardize my cat's health so that I can stick with my reservation. So I had to do a lot of juggling. I called that park, said I'm going to be a week late. This is what I'm planning. I had to quickly find something in San Antonio for the week. Decided a week at least by this time she will have gotten some medical diagnosis, a plan of action. And so I'm hoping that in a week I can go back and catch up that reservation. But do what you have to do. Just, you know, be flexible, change your route if you have to. You got to go to a big city to get an emergency vet to find the staff that you need. And the last piece of advice is really know how to advocate. And this is true for my health, for my family's health, for my cat's health. Advocate. And that doesn't mean you raise a fuss. It means you become educated on the history of the cat, verbalize, know how to talk about it, use the terms, explain clearly what is happening. But last night, I mean, it was like the vet was ready to just release Ginger and leave me to my own devices. And I said, look, this is what I need. She needs an ultrasound, but she needs to be seen by an internal medicine specialist. So I was very exact in what my request was. And you have to be. So so I've learned a lot in this process. Will Ginger be okay? I don't know. You know, she's a young cat. She appears healthy. I hope she's got a long life ahead of her. I will mention something about the expense. I am a financial coach. I have saved considerably over the years. I don't have a pot of money designated for the cats, but I'm financially, it's not gonna hurt me to get the services I need. So tonight, when I drop Ginger off at the pet hospital, I have to put down a deposit of $1,200. Okay, that's just to get the ball rolling, to get the internal medicine specialist to look at her. I don't even know if it includes the ultrasound. When I was there yesterday, the people were checking out with bills over $6,000, and you know, as a financial coach, you plan for emergencies, plan for your pet to have an emergency. Check out pet insurance options, put some money away into your budget every month so that this isn't a huge shock. I've been very fortunate with all the cats I've had that the medical bills have been pretty low, but this is going to be a pretty expensive a pretty expensive thing. But yeah, and I've got, I did something this morning, so I'm like $1,200. I looked at my app, so I am at day 199. Tomorrow's day 200, alcohol free. And my app, I was able to put in like on an average, how many drinks did I have a week? How much did it cost? And I'm up at like over $1,300. So to me, it's like, okay, I'm not drinking. I'm saving money from the alcohol. I'm losing weight too, which is great. And I can take those savings and apply them to something that's meaningful to me, something that is my highest priority, which is my cat's health. So I feel pretty good about how this is working out. And I'll be back tomorrow when I know some more information. Okay, until then, take care.